Greetings and welcome to the Wealth for Real YouTube channel. I'm your host, Christopher Anastasio. It is Wednesday, December 27th, 2023. And yes, amazingly enough, we have 4 days left in the year. So really thank you to everybody who supported the channel throughout 2023. It's an inaugural year. I wanted to make this video about Cardi B and her recent retraction of support for President Joe Biden about a month or so ago. I think it was like right after Thanksgiving time frame, or maybe right before Thanksgiving. So about a month-ish ago that this happened. I want to also say, before I dive into the screen that you're looking at here, that I actually did make a video on Facebook Live that I also turned into a reel back in about mid-December, so a couple weeks ago, where I was just going off the cuff about this a little bit, didn't have a chance to share my screen or anything, so you can see here's the reel that covers this topic. But basically, guys, I wanted to, and it looks like my face disappeared there, but I'm not going to start this video over. I basically wanted to show you guys this, and you know, that you see in the background here about all the news headlines that came out at that time, just reflecting for a moment. And this is one of the two main things I wanted to cover here on this topic, in addition to the Facebook Live that I did. Number one is look at the newsworthiness of this situation of Cardi saying, "Hey, I'm done with this. Done with the context here, guys, is she was like, I can't believe that New York City is cutting its budget the way that it is." And that is taking away from police, taking away from libraries, taking away from schools to pay for the migrant crisis, while the federal government is saying we can afford the Ukraine and Israel-Gaza wars. Like, we can support those two wars. And they're saying that while this situation is going on in New York City, which, of course, Cardi B is from the Bronx, so that's her connection to New York City. So that's kind of the backdrop and the context here, guys. And basically, just look at the clout. Look at the newsworthiness when this story came out of her saying this. Newsweek, Cardi B turns on Joe Biden. The Guardian, Cardi B drops support for Biden. HuffPost, you'd be a fool to discount Cardi B's political power. Insider, Cardi B slams Biden so she won't endorse another president again. Teen Vogue, bashes New York City budget cuts, Biden war approach on Instagram Live. Uprocks, calls out President Joe Biden, she slammed New York City budget cuts. WION, dropping support for Biden. The Hill, Cardi B declines to endorse Biden, points to spending on wars. Cardi B criticizes Adams and President for budget cuts on BET. Marca.com, Cardi B calls out, and that's just the first page, guys. Okay, look at all these platforms that said, hey, check this news story out. And I think there's something about it when you have somebody as outspoken as her, who was quite outspoken in 2020 in support of him, who then comes out seeing the reality of things, being responsive to the reality of things in terms of inflation, rising prices, 2 wars, New York City, budget cuts, like looking at this factual data and not being afraid to go back and say, I made a mistake here. I'm not endorsing this person again. I'm not going to go down this road again. I'm going to reverse support and say, I'm not touching anybody anymore because they're all going to do the same thing. Essentially, obviously, I'm paraphrasing. I definitely encourage you guys to check out Cardi's take on this stuff and really digest it on your own. But I was really, I had to do a double take when I saw the story because it's very rare that you would get a public figure like Cardi B to kind of walk something like this back so dramatically. So that's the first thing I kind of wanted to show you guys here. And I think, the thing I didn't really cover, and this is to point 2, the thing I didn't really cover in the Facebook Live back a couple weeks ago in the middle of this month about this situation is really the root issue that Cardi was talking about. Because in the Facebook Live, I talked more about, well, you got the 2 wars. Of course, the federal government's going to print money for those wars, reward their military-industrial complex buddies with, more contracts and more business and stuff like that. So that was more the focus of the live. But I want to focus a little bit more for the next couple minutes on the main thing she really started talking about, which was the New York City migrant crisis, right? And here you have a situation, guys, very liberal state that, of course, you would expect to embrace, sort of an anti-capitalist, scarcity, anti-free market approach to things, and just say, hey, look, we got money for everything, right? We got money for migrants. We got money for the police. We got money for the schools. We got money for the libraries. We got money for everything, right? I mean, there's no limit to it, right? We can do whatever we want, and we can spend money however we want, and prioritize everything. But the reality on the ground, as this migrant surge has occurred in New York City, is they can't handle everything, right? They've diverted resources to the migrant surge, but now that means they can't fund the schools and the police and the libraries, right? So you can't have everything all the time. And the priority has been made into the migrant crisis. So I think, that root issue, which I'll be very frank with you guys, I need to read more about that. I need to look at the budget. I need to look at what Mayor Adams has said about that. I'm not as smart on that as I would like to be, but I know the surface level facts there. I know what was reported on the issue through a lot of different mainstream outlets, basically had that same story. And then I know what Cardi B said about it. And so I wanted to kind of throw it out there, guys, as something to chew on. And it's like, you have states like California, New York. Love New York. I'm from New York. Love California. Visited there in 2022 with the family. Absolutely fell in love with it. I have nothing against those states. Even as a free market proponent, I have nothing against those states. I don't like to mix the stuff together and produce vitriol. It doesn't need to be produced. I'm okay with those states, but we have two states that for the longest time has critiqued some of these policies about the border and how we treat migrants and things like that. And I have complaints about it too. I don't like how it's been conducted either. But what's interesting is that you have these states that have said that, have come forward on that, or that have taken those positions, whether they're passive positions or active positions. And then when dealing with an actual influx of migrants, and you can debate all day how they were sent there and how that was awful and all these types of things, but ultimately they get the migrants into their state, and now it's a problem. It's like we have no space for them, and we don't have this, and we don't have that. We don't have the budget for it. I mean, give Mayor Adams, I guess, some credit for actually diverting budgetary resources to the migrant crisis. The problem is he has to take it from somewhere. Okay, he has to take it from somewhere. So where he's taking it from, I think, is what set Cardi B off. I don't think Cardi B, I'm totally guessing here, has anything against migrants, but she's saying, wow, we're strapped for cash here in New York City, got to pay for the migrants. Now we can't pay for schools. Now we can't pay for libraries. Now we can't pay for police. It's going to affect the neighborhood I grew up in, people I care about, people who are still in that neighborhood, things like that. So I think this is a really fascinating story, guys. I'd wrap up by saying I encourage you to check these news stories out. I mean, any one of these would do. I'm not going to pick a specific one and tell you to read it. But you can see, like I said, late November timeframe, about a month ago, this caused a bit of a stir, and as it should have, because a lot of people out there, whether you agree with this or disagree with this, are going to look to Cardi B for a recommendation, are going to think like, oh, what would she do? What is she thinking about the 2024 election? How is she going to react to 24? Blah, blah, blah. So I would encourage you guys to check this out, learn more about what's going on in New York City with the migrant crisis. Would love to hear your guys' take on either one of these things, the Cardi B rant and or the migrant crisis and some of the things I said about that. I will be doing more about the migrant crisis. I just, there's always a lag on these things, guys, because, just time constrained and having to feel comfortable learning some of the stuff going on well enough to make a comment about it. Otherwise, I got to label it kind of a hot take. But anyway, I definitely want to talk more about migrant crisis and how they're handling that, what they plan to do with it. And like I said, I'll be looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say about it. So with that, guys, hope everybody's having a great Wednesday, last few days of the year, and has something fun or enjoyable or whatnot planned for the New Year celebration. And we'll be back at you guys with a couple more videos, hopefully over the next few days. With that, thanks a lot, guys. Have a great night.